Welcome to Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and this is a special episode in which I'm going to share with you my entire whiskey library as of the end of 2019. So, in my exploration and journey of whiskeys, I am researching, tasting, visiting different distilleries, and then sharing my notes and experiences, my travels with you. And there are some areas in my exploration that I need to cover more. There are some gaps and things I need to learn more because it's a never-ending journey. Your journey doesn't end until you're, 6 feet under into the ground. While I have my favorite styles of whiskeys and favorite producers and favorite regions, my favorite bottles, I really want to have a well-rounded understanding and experience of whiskey. So in this review of my entire collection, what I'll be doing is giving a little bit of comments on all these various bottles, but also sharing with you areas that I want to explore more as we go into 2020 and beyond in the whiskey journey. Alrighty, so I'm going to share with you my whiskeys, not just strictly in terms of categories and types of whiskeys or regions, but in terms of how they're fitting on my shelves, right? So let's get at it. So I've broken it down into 13 different categories according to how they fit on my shelf, not just in terms of types of whiskey. The first is going to be bourbons, which will be non-Texas bourbons. Second will be 2 tall bottles. These are bottles that I can't fit on most of my shelves. This will include bourbon, American single malts, and blended scotch. Number 3, Texas whiskey, which will include bourbon and American single malts. The fourth will be Ardbeg, Islay single malt Scotch whiskey. My collection is so large, it deserves a category and shelves of its own. 5 will be other Islay single malt Scotch whiskeys. Number 6 will be Campbeltown single malt Scotch whiskeys. Number 7 will be the Lowlands, Highlands, and Speyside single malt Scotch whiskeys. Number 8 will be non-single malt Scotch whiskeys. So that's blended Scotch, blended malt, blended grain, single grain. Number 9 will be world whiskey, which will include England, India, and Sweden. Number 10 will be California whiskey, that is bourbons and single malts. Number 11 will be Irish and Canadian whiskeys. Number 12 will be Southern Hemisphere whiskeys, which will include Australia and New Zealand. And the 13th category will be Japanese whiskeys. So I've developed quite a collection of bourbons, and this is just half of them. And I've made a trip to Kentucky to visit 6 distilleries, and I'm still hoping to go back. The biggest problem has been trying to get a direct flight from California into Kentucky. Tend to lose an entire day just trying to get there, an entire day to get back home. But for me, bourbon has a special place that I'm usually have to be in the mood for when I'm gonna have one. Something a little extra sweet, something a little, the caramels and the butterscotch and the vanilla and those classic characteristics of bourbon. But it is a myth to say that all bourbons are alike. Yes, it is a narrower range of aromas and flavors in comparison to, say, Scotch whiskey, but it is getting into the nuances and the nitty-gritty of bourbons that you really find out that some of them really stand out. Now, so let me go over these really quick. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. This is one that's hard to beat. This is the standard bearer for all bourbons in terms of quality-price ratio. A Knob Creek. This is one I picked up in Kentucky that I actually bottled myself with the seal on it and so forth. Maker's Mark Private Select. Another one that I picked up at the distillery. However, you can get store selections in which a store has bought an entire cask, and there's like 1,001 different variations of this bourbon alone based on the interstaves that they use to develop more flavors. Then there is the Willet, a bottle that looks like a pot still, and coincidentally, apparently people like to buy this and then turn it into a bottle. A good classic whiskey. Then there is Buffalo Trace. This is a good go-to everyday sipper and moderately priced. Next to that, the Weller Special Reserve. Again, the price range on this one is all over the place, from under $30 to over $50. I don't understand why the market could swing that much. Again, a good classic wheater. Four Roses single barrel, probably one of the highest quality price ratio bourbons to follow Elijah Craig. This is a really unique bottle. This is a Union Horse Distilling Reunion Straight Rye Whiskey. So you might want to argue perhaps it doesn't belong with a bunch of bourbons, but I don't have a separate category for ryes because I only have a couple ryes. Perhaps that's another category that I could later split off one of these days and explore that more. Here is the Orphan Barrel Rhetoric 22-year-old. For me, this one sort of jumps the shark a little bit on being overly woody, which can happen with bourbons as they get a lot older. This is one that I'm looking forward to returning to again in 2020. This is the Wild Turkey Revival, and I really liked it. However, I think this is one that really needs more time to open up. Extremely expensive. It's over $150 here in the United States. However, I think as I go back to it in 2020, I'm going to be surprised as to how much it has changed in the time in which it's had a little bit of time exposure to air. This isn't all of my bourbon collection. I have more that are from Texas and from California, but I'm going to categorize those or share those with you more in terms of my California collection and Texas whiskey collection. This is the Bulleit Barrel Strength. Really awesome whiskey that has high rye content. It gives you a lot more spice. This is one from Indianapolis. This is the Few Bourbon Whiskey, 46.5% alcohol by volume or 93 proof. To me, this one seems too young. I've not been real thrilled with this one. What do you do with bourbons or other whiskeys that you're maybe not real thrilled with? You're not going to want to go back to. I don't know, make a cocktail with them, give them away to friends. Who knows? Haven't figured that one out yet. This is one I absolutely love. This is the Redemption Barrel Proof Straight High Rye Bourbon Whiskey, aged 9 years. This is one that I like. It's a super simple sipper. This is the Long Branch from Wild Turkey, bottled at 43% alcohol by volume. Spend some time in a mesquite cask. If you want a bourbon that's just sort of a simple sipper that has some unique characteristics to it due to spending some time in unique, I highly recommend this one. I really like it. Yeah, it's not a big punch in the face of alcohol and with a full throttle of flavor like some other bourbons, but it has some uniqueness to it that I really like. This is the Old Ezra number 7, barrel strength, bottled at 58.5% alcohol by volume. This one is absolutely fantastic. However, it can be hard to come by here in California. This is one of the most unique bourbons that I have in my library. This is Jefferson's Ocean, aged at sea, cask strength, bottled at 56% alcohol by volume. It has this very distinctive salty character to it. I'm not a super big fan of drinking it straight. However, if you have a whiskey, let's say like this Few, and you want to give it more character to it, you can blend these two and it'll give a little bit more salty character to it and expand the profile of the whiskey. So sometimes you can use something like that to blend with other whiskeys. Now, a lot of these whiskeys I have reviewed during the 2019 Bourbon Month. I spent an entire month doing bourbon reviews, had a number of different guests, including some fellow whiskey tubers who focus on bourbon. So if you want to see all my reviews on these bourbons, you're going to want to check out that playlist. And another bourbon that I think everyone should have in their bourbon collection or library is a Blanton's. This is John Wick's, one of John Wick's favorite whiskeys, favorite bourbons. Yeah, you know, it's a real fancy bottle. It's a good, solid bourbon, but they can be overly priced. I don't understand what the hype is. Is it just the bottle? Is it the fancy collectible cork? I don't know. But for whatever reason, some places in the United States can get an entire pallet full of them and offer them at reasonable prices. Some other places, you know, they get just a few of them and they're selling these for over $100, which is insane. It's still, I think, a very, very good bourbon. And if you're going to understand bourbon, I think it's one you got to have in your collection. However, don't knock yourself out. Don't pay too much for this bourbon. Now, this other whiskey is one which is debatable whether it's a bourbon or no, it is a Tennessee whiskey, but I think it's another one you gotta have in your collection. This is a Jack Daniel's Old No. 7. Now, this is not one I like to sip straight. This is one I like to put on Coca-Cola, and you can pick one up typically around the holidays as part of gift collections. I got this one with these 2 glasses, which are pretty cool, and it goes for about $18 or something like that. So I think in terms of its use, that you're going to use it with Coca-Cola, and I did a whole video on whiskey and Coke. You can check that out. I think it's a great high quality price whiskey. All right, so these bottles are my too tall collection. They're too tall to fit on most of my shelves. So these are bourbons, American whiskeys, and I've actually got a blended whiskey here that I haven't got into yet. This is Sia. I've met the owner actually a couple times. It's a blended whiskey purchased from Scotland, but the owner is in the Napa Valley. So it's blended over in Scotland and then sold here in the United States. I've actually given a bottle of this to Roy and Jason Whiskey Wise, but I haven't actually got into it. I tasted it at a tasting, but I haven't done a review of it yet. This is a Booker's. This is, if I recall correctly, 2018 04. Really like this one. I'd like to have more Booker's. They fill a particular niche, I think, within the bourbon world with a very distinctive flavor. However, I can only have so many whiskeys. This is a Colonel Taylor small batch. Really like this one. I thought it had a high quality price ratio. Again, I mean, look how tall these things are. If I were to have more of them right here, you wouldn't even be able to see me. This is a bottle that I picked up while studying for the Whiskey Ambassador course. This is from Missouri. This is the J.J. Newcomb Missouri Malt Whiskey made with cherry wood. And it's from the Spirits of St. Louis, bottled at 45% alcohol by volume, distilled and bottled by Square One Brewery and Distillery in St. Louis, Missouri. This is High West whiskey. This is the American Prairie bourbon, bottled at 46% alcohol by volume. I know a lot of people like High West. I guess I need to taste some of the bottles. This one just seemed a little too green to me. I wasn't real thrilled with this one. This is a bottle that I bought when Picknell passed away, and I haven't gotten around to trying. I've tasted it at events. I've tasted it at the Whiskeys of the World event. This is blackened, a blend of straight whiskeys finished in black brandy casks, and it was remastered by Dave Picknell, bottled at 45% alcohol by volume. And I bought this just when he passed away, but I haven't actually had time to get into it, but eventually I will. All right, my next category of whiskeys in my whiskey library is Texas whiskeys, which is probably a category I am really excited about. In fact, almost bordering on becoming more excited about Texas whiskeys than Scotch, probably because right now, yeah, there's a lot of hype going on. It's something new, something to be definitely to be explored, something which for the most part, most of them, at least the best of them, you really got to go down to Texas, which I have now a few times in order to visit distilleries. I've been to somewhere around 12, 13 distilleries and met up with a lot of fantastic people down there. Texas really has it going on. Probably one of the most iconic Texas distillers right now, and I did a whole month in July 2019 on Texas whiskeys. Planning on doing another month of Texas whiskeys in 2020. Some of these bottles, by the way, I haven't gotten into yet because I'm going to get into them in 2020. And some of them I've tasted in Texas, but I haven't reviewed them yet on my channel. All right, so Balcones. Definitely want to check out Balcones. And in Texas month, I had Jared Hempstead, the distiller, on my channel. I had a fantastic talk with him. This is the single malt rum cask finish. This is the baby blue. If your first Balcones is baby blue and you judge Balcones based on this baby blue, I'd ask you not to do so. It is a weird, funky whiskey, which some people like, some people don't. So don't get your impression of Balcones just on this one. This is a real prize. In fact, I picked up two of these. This is the Hecheceros single malt from Balcones. I tasted this with Daniel Whittington on the vault. We did a couple of videos together and we were sipping on this one. I brought back two of these from Texas. This is absolutely superb. Looking forward to getting back into this in 2020. This is one I tasted at the distillery, but I haven't reviewed it myself. This is the, if I pronounce it correctly, Brujeria. Brujeria. This is also a Texas single malt. These are ones that I picked up at a whiskey shop, a couple different whiskey shops in Texas. So if you go to Texas, you don't have time to hit distilleries, go to the whiskey shop, because you're gonna find at whiskey shops, even some of the large chain wine and whiskey shops, you're gonna find some Texas whiskeys there that aren't distributed outside of Texas. There are only currently about 5 or so Texas distilleries that are making it outside of Texas, and just now I would say Balcones is getting more of the whiskeys outside of Texas. Before, you know, I'd go to a local shop and there might be 1 or 2. Now I'm seeing an entire lineup of Balcones available outside of Texas, which is absolutely fantastic, and they're starting to make their way actually into Europe now, although from what I hear they're quite expensive over there. This is the Rebecca Creek. This is the distillery that I visited in my last trip, so I'll be sharing this one in my Texas Whiskey Month. Really cool tour, really nice place, and I like this whiskey. This is one that I picked up at a whiskey shop. This is Witherspoon Whiskey, Texas. This is a bourbon. This is Whitmeyer's Texas Whiskey, 90 proof. Again, I haven't visited the distillery. I picked this up at a whiskey shop. This is the Ben Milam Straight Bourbon Whiskey, bottled at 56.6% alcohol by volume, and they are now changing to either Milam Green or Green Milam, I can't remember, as Heather Green has now come on board as part of the crew there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they produce now that she has come on. Super neat lady. Was able to meet her at the Bastards Ball in Austin, Texas in October, and really looking forward to seeing what they continue to do. Now, a note, I'm not going to go into this in detail, there is some differences in Texas whiskey. There are those that are certified Texas, which means from grain to bottle, it's all Texas. There are some Texas whiskeys in which perhaps they bought White Dog, new make, they bought the distillate from outside of Texas, then brought it into Texas, and then put it into casks, and then aged it, such as, say, from MGP. And so it takes on a unique Texas character from the climate primarily, whereas the others are using Texas grain. So not all Texas whiskeys 100% every component aspect from Texas, but I'm not going to go more into that. If you're interested in more of that, you want to check out the website for the Texas Whiskey Association, and I had Spencer Whalen on my channel, the head of the TWA, and during Texas Whiskey Month in 2019. Another distillery that I visited down in Texas is Stryker. These are some of the most unique whiskeys coming out of Texas. One of the things I like about Texas is they're really experimenting a lot, whether it's with casks or with different types of corns. Plus, the obviously, which is getting a lot of talk about Texas whiskeys, is the intensity of the swings between temperature, between night and day temperature, the diurnal range in the fluctuation of temperatures, and how that causes the spirit to interact with the oak so that it develops a lot of flavor very quickly. And Stryker has really got it going on. I visited the distillery on their 3rd anniversary, had an absolutely fantastic time there. This is the smoked single malt from Stryker. This is the Revenant Oak, which is a peated whiskey. You don't expect peated or smoked whiskeys to be coming from the United States, let alone Texas. And this is a special bottle that I hand bottled at the 3rd anniversary of the distillery. Really looking forward to getting into these in 2020. These next 3 whiskeys are from Garrison Brothers Distillery, founded by Dan Garrison, and located in High, Texas. High has a very intense, Texas in general has a lot of extreme heat, but high even a lot more. And Dan Garrison has, I would say, a unique character to himself. This is a frontiersman who really is full throttle, full pedal to the metal, a gangbusters producer in the Texas whiskey industry. And there's a lot of others in the Texas whiskey industry who frankly are really following in his footsteps. Sort of like the Robert Mondavi of the Napa Valley, and that's Dan Garrison. Someone with a personality that is no holds barred. That's the way his whiskeys are as well. This is the Estacado, which is finished in a Texas port cask. This is the 2016 Texas Straight Bourbon. Really like that one. I've gotten halfway through that one. And this one is the single barrel, hand selected by the master distiller, Dennis Todd. If you're going down to Texas and you're visiting distilleries, Garrison Brothers is definitely a distillery to visit. Really beautiful property. And when you visit the distillery, as you're driving in, roll down the windows and take a deep breath. Take a deep smell, because I smell sort of the terroir of the region in terms of the brush and the trees and the plant life that you've got going on there. I pick up a little bit of those notes in these bourbons as well. All right, the next one is from the Crowded Barrel. Daniel and Rex of the Whiskey Vault and the Whiskey Tribe, they have a distillery that was 100% funded for by the members of the Whiskey Tribe. This is the Eleanor, and there's been a number of different renditions of Eleanor. They're really a micro distillery and super experimental, because they're not going to be big production, putting out thousands of cases, around the world. So they're very experimental, and they're actually going from the little micro still to now going to be putting in a new still. So they'll probably be ramping up production as well. This is a special bottle that I actually picked up when I was down there for the Bachelor's Ball. This is a Crowded Barrel Alliance Series. This is a Texas Whiskey Festival blend. So this is a blend of several Texas distillers, sort of a cooperation to put together these special little bottles, and they've got a number of different ones going on. Really looking forward to getting into this in 2020. All right, continuing with the Texas Whisky Collection. This is a Ranger Creek 36 caliber. They put a little dot before the 36, which makes it look like a 36 caliber. Cask strength Texas Straight Bourbon. This is bottle 567, bottled at 63.6% alcohol by volume. Visited the distillery, and they gave me a really fantastic one-on-one tour. Really looking forward to getting into that and sharing my photography of the distillery. This is from Treaty Oak Distillers. This is the Ghost Hill Texas Bourbon Whiskey. Has sort of the light blue color on here. So they have two bottlings. They have one that has sort of a pinkish red color. That is made from sourced spirit, but is then aged there. This is one that's 100% grain to glass from them. So they make a distinction, which I really like, because it shows an integrity to be upfront about what you're producing. Really beautiful property. I was there during a big special event there in my fresh trip to Texas. Looking forward to getting into that one. This is an oddball. If you look at the color of it, it sort of looks the color of, I don't know, Mountain Dew almost. It has a light green character. This is a brand new distillery that I visited during my last trip. This is Samuel Maverick. This is an Alamo white whiskey. It's a brand new distillery, so they don't have anything with a lot of age on it, and they produce other spirits as well. But I wanted something to bring back, and really cool tour there. I actually met the head distiller there. He gave me a one-on-one grand tour there. Absolutely fantastic. Really excited to see what they've got going on there. And they have a restaurant there as well. So I wanted something to bring back. Yeah, it's gonna be young. Am I really into white whiskeys? No, but still, it's something to check out. See what they're having now, and then later on, when they produce something with a little bit of age on it, which is not gonna take long. We're talking a couple years, right? In Texas, and then compare the two later on. And the next one is Iron Root Republic, run by the Licorice family. These bourbons have a real special place in my heart and in my liver. An absolutely fantastic distillery, really cool people, and they're really involved with the Texas community, and Robert Licorice, hey Robert, is really involved with whiskey tubers, which, you know, we say it's sort of cliche. We say it's not about the whiskey, it's about the people you drink it with, and that's true. That's true, and the Licorice family are probably very exemplary on that. The other thing about Iron Root Republic is they're very experimental in the flavors that they bring in terms of using different varieties of corn, right? In Scotland, it's often driven by the cask, the different types of cask you use, you know, or whether it's peated or not. For Texas, and particularly Iron Root Republic, it's often about experimenting with different base ingredients, such as corn. This is one you can see I've gotten into a little bit. This is the BBC, which is a bloody butcher corn. This is bottled at cask strength at 60.5% alcohol by volume. This is straight from the cask. I got it when I met up with them in 2019. This is another bottle I got there. This is the MMC, Magic Mana Corn, which is a lighter, more honeyed type character coming from the type of corn. Haven't gotten into this one yet, although I tasted it at the distillery. I look forward to getting into this in 2020. And this is Still Austin Whiskey Company Bourbon from Austin, Texas, another distillery I enjoyed visiting in 2019. I haven't cracked this one open yet. It's another one I'll be getting into in 2020. All right, so my next category is Ardbeg. Now, you might think, Ardbeg? That's a producer, not a category of whiskey. Some people have their favorite football teams, their favorite baseball teams. I have my favorite distillery. So, of all the producers of whiskey, of Scotch whiskey, the one that I have the most from a singular producer is Ardbeg. So, I want to cover these on their own. This is the 10-year-old. If you've never had Ardbeg, this is the must first try. I think it's a standard bearer, one of the highest quality price ratio single malt Scotch whiskeys, period. I did an entire video on the core range of Ardbeg. You can check that video out. This is the Kelpie. This is the Anoa, finished in PX cask. Not quite as peaty as a lot of others, a little bit sweeter. A good entry level to introduce to Ardbeg if you don't start with the 10. This is the Korevrukken. Virtually cask strength. It doesn't say cask strength, but it virtually is in terms of the high ABV. One of the highest quality price ratios in terms of a high ABV or near cask strength whiskeys. And this is the Uigeadail, or as many people like to call it, the Oogie. This is the second half of my Ardbeg collection, made up of my special bottles from Ardbeg Distillery. This is the Campbeltown. The money raised from the sale of this whiskey goes towards supporting really ancient ruins, Celtic crosses. There is the chapel nearby the distillery. Dates back to like the 6th century. I did a full video on this in which I shared my photography of visiting the distillery in June 2018. This is the 200th anniversary committee release of Ardbeg. This is the Ardbeg Perpetuum. Super ashy. You can still get this, in Scotland for like under $100. Probably goes for over $100 here in the United States, but still readily available. It's almost like a Lafroig Lover's Ardbeg. This is the Ardbeg Grooves. This is not the committee release. This is their second bottling. They have a committee release, and then they have a sort of more mainstream regular release. This is the regular release. It has been aged in red wine cask, which gives it sort of a chocolate-covered black cherry note to it. This is probably now become the holy grail of all of Ardbeg. This is the Ardbeg Dark Cove. My favorite, although I got some contenders here, Ardbeg. I was able to get 2 of them for $150 each. They're now going for like $500. Absolutely superb. This is one of the most unique Ardbegs. It's the Ardbeg committee release of the Ardbeg Drum, in which it spent some time in rum cask, more tropical notes, pineapple, and so forth. Some people really liked it, some people didn't. I really liked it, and it really improves as it opens up. This is a bottle which by the time you're watching this video is probably completely empty. This is a special bottle. This is the Ardbeg Very Young Exclusive Committee Reserve. This was distilled in 1997, bottled in 2003. I'm gonna do an entire video just on this. This is one I bought at auction. It was a fundraiser for the Scotch Test Dummies, which a colleague of theirs developed with cancer, so they're raising money for the family. I have an entire video I'll be doing on that, probably already published by the time you're watching this, and this will be finished. And I brought this to the Bashers Bowl down in Texas. We did an uncorking with Scott and Bart, and then I shared it with people there, and I still had a little bit, about a third of the bottle to bring back home, and then later I sent a couple samples to Bart so they could experience it not just as an uncorking, but as it opened up. All right, this next one is, this is the Ardbeg Supernova from 2019. This is not an inexpensive bottle, going anywhere between $200 and $300. I really, really like it, but it is a smack upside the head with Pete, if that's the way you like it. This is the Ardbeg 19-year-old Tri-Van. Again, going for about $300. It's not an inexpensive bottle. It is a contender for me at this point to perhaps outplace the Dark Cove. I really, really like it. I would say it is probably, in terms of finesse and elegance and development, probably one of the most finest of Ardbeg releases. So we now move on to my next category of whiskeys in my collection, which is other Islay distilleries, starting with Lagavulin. I have some special bottles here that I brought back from the distillery, as well as one that is more widely available. This is the Lagavulin Fish Eel Edition. Fish Eel is a festival on the island that occurs in May, and all the distilleries have a special bottling. I didn't attend the festival. I was there a month afterwards in June 2018, and they still had some bottles left. So the Fish Eel comes in this fancy little bag. This one's halfway gone, but I've got another bottle. This is bottled at 53.9% alcohol by volume. This is the Lagavulin Jazz. Also comes in a little special bag. They have a jazz festival at Lagavulin Distillery. This one is also bottled cask strength, 57.6% alcohol by volume. This is the Distiller's Edition. I bought two of these. I gave one to Scott and Bart for their 5th anniversary edition. I've not reviewed this one individually, but they have. This is the Lagavulin 12. This is bottled at cask strength. Of all the Lagavulins that I would recommend to check out, that, if you're gonna buy one bottle from Lagavulin that's readily available, this would be the one to get, because it's also at cask strength. This is the 2016 edition. It's their 200th anniversary, and it's bottled at 57.7% alcohol by volume. And this last one is a special bottling that I most recently got. This is the Lagavulin 11-year-old. This is the Nick Offerman edition, bottled at a lower cask strength than these others at 46% alcohol by volume, but it's a really nice dram. All right, continuing on with Southern Islay, I have two bottles here from Laphroaig. This is Laphroaig 10 cask strength, batch 10. Absolutely love this one. A contender for 2019 top 10. High quality price ratio, goes for about 65 bucks. It is not just merely a bigger version of the Laphroaig 10. There's a lot more going on there. It actually has more savory notes. This is the Laphroaig 10, probably a classic standard for Laphroaig. Very, 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 very ashy when you first get into it from a neck pour. However, I find that as you get past the shoulder, it develops more sort of that chocolate minty character, and this one's near gone, and so I'll probably be looking for another bottle real soon. This is a Douglas Lane Bowmore 20-year-old. Douglas Lane is an independent bottler. This is bottled at 52.7% alcohol by volume, and I like this a lot more than their distillery bottlings. This is the Kilchoman Mac-Ear Bay. Mac-Ear Bay is a bay that's sort of to the west of the distillery. Got to not only tour these distilleries, but I actually went to the Mac-Ear Bay beach. You don't think people go to the beach on Islay. It's a little cold there. Didn't see any surfers or anything, but a really nice whiskey. This is the Kilchoman 100% Islay edition. Everything from grain to glass is from Islay. The only thing contributing flavor that's not from Islay is obviously the cask, because they don't have too many forests on Islay. Then we have a couple bottlings here from Bruichladdich Distillery. This is a Port Charlotte. So Bruichladdich name distillery, that says Bruichladdich, are unpeated. The Port Charlotte and the Octomore are both peated. This is one from the distillery. This is the 2007 CC01 heavily peated Islay single malt Scotch whiskey. And this is the Octomore 8.1. I love Octomore, however, they tend to be kind of expensive. $175 to about $2.25. So the only thing that keeps me from buying more Octomore is the price, because there are a lot of other highly peated whiskeys in that price range. It really makes it in tough competition. But all these are absolutely fantastic. I visited all the distilleries on Islay with the exception of I walked around Bowmore, but didn't go inside when I was there, and Ardbeg was not open yet. So we drove by it, but I haven't visited Ardbeg. So my next trip back to Islay, I definitely want to tour Bowmore and visit Ardbeg Distillery. All right, continuing with the Islay collection, I'll head a little bit further north to Caol. This is the 2018 official edition of Caol. This is bottled at 58.2% alcohol by volume. It's only 10 years old, but it's hard to find a cask strength whiskey from Caol. This is the 12-year-old, sort of, I would say, the standard bearer for Caol. But 90% of Caol actually goes into blends. It makes the sort of peated backbone for, say, Johnny Walker Black. But definitely worth checking out. They actually produce an unpeated whiskey on occasion, but those tend to be a little hard to get a hold of. This is a Caol 11-year-old. I bought this at the Whisky Exchange in London during my 2019 trip to England. Distilled in 1999, bottled in 2011. It's called the Whisky Trail Islay Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. This is a Whisky Exchange exclusive, really, really nice whiskey. Then we head up to Bunnahabhain. They have such a unique character to the whiskeys that really makes them stand out from all their neighbors. This is the Bunnahabhain 12-year-old. If you are not so much into Islay whiskeys and you're looking to get your feet wet and check out Islay, this is the one I'm going to highly recommend. This is probably my introductory whiskey to peat. Now, some say that this is not a peated whiskey. It's only like 3 ppm. Some people say they can't smell or taste any peat on it. I do. Perhaps I'm a little bit more sensitive to it, but this is an absolutely fantastic whiskey. Now, the best Bunnahabhain I ever had was the 2018 Fish Ale edition, Moin Oloroso. Absolutely superb and absolutely just mind-blowing whiskey. Unfortunately, I don't have one. I wish I'd bought 2 of them. I had brought one home and shared it with the Scotch 4 dummies and let them take home the latter half of the bottle so they could, Mark and Drew, so they could share it with Andrew and Sean. You know, whiskey isn't whiskey until it's shared. It's all about the sharing, not about hoarding whiskey. And I wanted someone else to enjoy when I enjoyed it, and I actually shared it with people at the Scotch Test Dummies 5th Anniversary Edition. If I can get my hands on another one, I will. If you find another Bunnahabhain that is called Moin Oloroso, so Moin is merely Gaelic for peated. So if you can get your hands on any other Moin Oloroso from Bunnahabhain, I highly recommend checking it out. This is a really unique bottle that I also brought back from Islay from the distillery. This is a distillery edition. This is a 13-year-old Marsala cask. And if you're not familiar with Marsala, Marsala is a fortified wine, kind of like sherry, but made with completely different grapes. I'm not going to give you a lecture on Marsala. It's sweeter, fruitier, and really, really distinct and unique bottling. And I really, really like this one. Bunnahabhain. You know, if someone asked me, my favorite distillery, obviously Ardbeg, of the southern distilleries, of the northern distilleries, say, once you head north from Bowmore, I'll probably go Bunnahabhain is my favorite distillery in the north. All right, so the fifth category in my collection is Campbeltown single malt Scotch whiskeys. Campbeltown, there's only 3 distilleries, so it's a lot smaller than, say, Islay or the Highlands or Speyside, but the whiskeys are so distinct, I really think they belong in a class by themselves and are a distinct region to be explored. So these 3 are all from the Springbank distillery. This is the Longrow Peated, widely available. This is the Longrow Red Malbec, bottled at 51.3% alcohol by volume. I think wine finished cask finishes, particularly red wine, are a category of Scotch whiskey you really should get to know, and how the wine cask impacts a Scotch whiskey, because they really do deliver a distinct character, distinct from, say, sherry casks and bourbon casks, and quite unpredictable as to what you're going to get from it. This doesn't taste anything like Malbec, whereas a sherry cask whiskey, yeah, you definitely get the sherry notes if you're familiar with sherries. Speaking of which, the next bottle is a Springbank heavily sherried cask. This is the 8-year-old. This is one I brought back from the distillery. Distilled in March 2011, released May 23rd, 2019 for the Campbeltown Festival, and only 1,100 bottles, and it is really quite a sherry bomb. This next one is a Kilkerran 15-year-old, one that I brought back from the distillery. This is bottled at 57.1% alcohol by volume from Open Day 2019. And this last one, an absolutely fantastic whiskey from Glen Scotia. This is the Warehouse Edition, bottled at 56.2% alcohol by volume. And all these have been reviewed as part of my 2019 American in Scotland series. All right, so the 6th category in my whiskey library is the Highlands and Speyside. I'm kind of putting those 2 together, even though it's an extremely large area for Scotland and there are more distilleries in that area than all the rest of Scotland. In fact, Speyside has the highest concentration of distilleries. Stylistically, they belong together more than, say, Islay or Campbeltown or even the Lowlands. And even though there's quite a range and some variation, as we're going to see in some of these bottles, I still think as a region these belong together. So over here we have a couple Glenmorangies that are widely available. This is the Glenmorangie La Santa, aged 12 years old, sherry cask finish. This is the Glenmorangie Quinta Reuben, finished in port cask, also aged 12 years old, both on the Swedish side. Absolutely fantastic whiskeys. And this is a Glenfiddich Solera cask. This is 15 years old. Now, Solera, if you're familiar with sherry Soleras, it's not the type of sherry Solera in which you have multiple casks and it goes from cask to cask to cask. That would be the way sherry is done in a Solera. Rather, this is closer to an infinity bottle. It's one huge cask that is never emptied. And that's what they call a Solera. And I was able to check it out when I visited and toured the distillery. This is a bottle I brought back from Glenfarclas. This is a Glenfarclas 13-year-old 2004 distillery exclusive, bottled at 57.5% alcohol by volume, an absolutely superb whiskey. It's funny, on the few times that I've been blind tasted on Scotch whiskeys, I haven't had that many blind tastings, and someone has blinded me on Glenfarclas. There's something about Glenfarclas that just says Glenfarclas, and I particularly on the finish, really like them. All right, this is a Macallan 2017 classic cut, probably closest thing you're going to get to an actual cask strength. This is bottled at 58.4% alcohol by volume, widely available. I've tasted this, I think it's 16 and the 18, although I don't have a bottle of them. Now, Macallan was the first distillery that I really sort of fell in love with in terms of whiskeys. It was a Macallan 12-year-old, and I really enjoyed visiting the distillery in June 2018. However, I don't have a huge collection of Macallan whiskeys. Why? I think they're great whiskeys. I've never had a Macallan that I didn't like. However, the quality price ratio just isn't there. They just tend to charge way too much, and there are way too many whiskeys that you can get of similar or even better quality for far less money. But still, I really like Macallan. This is the 2016 Oban Distillers Edition. Oban is a Highland, West Highland distillery along the coast. Tends to have a little bit of sea breeze and salty character to it, given the oceanic influence, and also uses a lighter peat character as well that tends to be really interwoven. I've had a number of other Oban. I visited the distillery. I've had a number of other bottlings. One that I really like to, and I have another whiskey that I think is very similar to this, but it comes from a completely different place in the world. Alrighty, continuing with the Highlands, I have 2 bottles here from Glen Grant Distillery, which I visited in July 2019. This is one I haven't opened yet. This is a special bottling. It's 170th anniversary, heavily sherry cask, but looking forward to get into it. We'll probably crack it open in 2020. This is one that I reviewed for my video. At the time of recording this, that video is not out, but by the time this video comes out, it will be out. Absolutely beautiful distillery. I mean, just a gorgeous distillery and an absolutely fantastic whiskey. This is finished in a port cask. This is a distillery exclusive cask strength, bottled at 57.2% alcohol by volume. Over here we have a Bal Blair. This is the Bal Blair 99 second release. I visited Bal Blair in 2018. Very controversial this past year. They came out with a new lineup. They're going away from vintage over into age statements. I reviewed a 2012. I received sort of a heel of a bottle from Phil and Deepa, and I really like it. It's probably, that one's a decent quality price ratio, but the other ones are getting a little bit expensive. All right. This is a Balakan 12-year-old heavily peated Burgundy cask. A Balakan is the peated version of Ardbeg. So if you're not familiar with Ardbeg or Balakan, you want to check these out. So if you get a Balakan, it is a peated Ardbeg. This is absolutely superb. I think this was like number 2 or number 3 in my top 20 top 10 for 2018. This was a special bottling for a liquor store out in Indianapolis. I tried this when I visited the Scotch Fort Dummies, and then got 2 bottles from the shop. This is an Avalara Abudna cask strength, bottled at 59.9% alcohol by volume. This is cask 64. Really like that one. Toured the distillery in July 2019. This is a Ben Romick peated cask, bottled at 46% alcohol by volume. Now, this is the 2008 version. Comparable to, say, an Ardbeg 10, and goes for in the low 50s. So a good high quality price ratio whiskey. And this one is a Glengoyne. I love this one. This one goes for about 70 bucks. This is the Glengoyne Legacy, and it is sort of dangerously delicious. This is one where if it's within hand's reach, you're gonna wanna grab it and drink it. Absolutely fantastic, and I think another good high quality price ratio. All right, moving on with Highlands and Speyside. This is a Cragganmore 12-year-old, 40% ABV. I wasn't really thrilled with when I tasted it at the distillery in June 2018. However, when I got back home, I bought a bottle and I found I really like it. This is one which sort of, I would say, defies the, hey, there's nothing good below 46 rule or 43 rule. I think it delivers a lot of flavor, a lot of complexity for something at 40 ABV. And I know there's a lot of people out there who say, yeah, but just think how much it would be better if it was at higher ABV. I'm just telling you, I like it as is. This is a really cool Deanston. I also enjoyed visiting Deanston in June 2018. This is finished in a cognac cask. It's unchilled, filtered, 18 years old, bottled at 46% alcohol by volume. Deanston, an absolutely spectacular distillery. Visited it on the way to Oban Distillery, and then from Oban we went to Islay. This next one is Dalwhinnie. Dalwhinnie is a distillery I visited, sort of my final stop in June 2018. I was coming back from the Highlands on the way back to Glasgow. It wasn't originally on my itinerary, but it was along the way, so I stopped in. Dalwhinnie is sort of known for being the highest elevation distillery in Scotland. Just so happens when I was there, I was able to meet up with the master distiller, Lizzie. So this one's actually called Lizzie's Dram, and she autographed the tube, and she autographed the bottle as well. But to be honest with you, I've not had a Dalwhinnie that I was actually like super impressed with. They're good whiskeys, they're nice whiskeys. I haven't found anything that had the wow factor to it. This next one is the Glenlivet Nudura peated cask finished whiskey. Love this whiskey. 62.1% alcohol by volume. They didn't use peated barley, but rather after a bourbon cask aging, they put it into a cask that previously had a peated whiskey in it. I would guess something from Islay. It has an Islay character to it in terms of the peat, but I'm completely wrong on it. But really love this one, and it's actually widely distributed. Although I visited the distillery, and they had this at the distillery, I bought this one when I got back home because price-wise, it's like $75 US, pretty close in terms of the pounds exchange rate, and then I didn't have to bring it home. This next one is absolutely superb. This is from Glendronach Distillery. This is a hand-filled bottle. It's not widely distributed, and I actually filled this myself at the distillery. This is bottled at 54.7% alcohol by volume. This is number 172 out of cask 5086, and potentially could be my whiskey of the year for 2019. At the time of this recording, I haven't made up my mind yet. This is a Glenmorangie peated PX finished cask whiskey, bottled at, I think it's 55.8% alcohol by volume. Glenmorangie is known for doing wine finished casks. A lot of them are, 40 ABV, but they tend to be, $25 to $30 in the US. So I think a really good quality price ratio, and they do deliver a lot of flavor coming out of those wine casks. But this one's absolutely spectacular. I mean, it is one of the most intense, hedonistic, and concentrated whiskeys that I've ever had. Just really a mind-blowing whiskey. All right, continuing on with the Highlands and Speyside. While I am recording this, I haven't finished my series on my trip to Scotland. Although by the time you're seeing this, that series has been completed. But I'm about to record my video for Old Pulteney. So I've got a little glass here, a little dram of the Old Pulteney 2015. But by the time you're watching this, I've already given my review. So in going through all my bottles, I realized there was one that I forgot that's not a Highland or Speyside. It's a Lowland. I don't have a whole lot of whiskeys from the Lowlands. I had an Auchentoshan 3-wood, but I've only got this much left, not worth mentioning as part of my collection. This, however, is a Glenkinchie, and I've already reviewed this part of my tour of the distillery. This is a Glenkinchie distillery exclusive bottling batch 01 at 48%. Alcohol by volume. Now, if I had a bigger collection of Lowland distillery whiskeys, I would probably have a whole nother section just for the Lowlands, but I've only got the one, so I'm just gonna throw it in here. All right, my next two bottles come from all the way up in Orkney, the most northern part of the Highlands. This is the Highland Park 12 Nests of Radgar's Legacy. I haven't gotten into this one yet, but by the time you watch this, I have. I brought this back from the distillery from my July 2019 trip, as it is a distillery exclusive. This is the Highland Park Magnus. I picked this up at the Scotch for Dummies Highland Park whiskey and dinner pairing, which was really a lot of fun. This is a bottle that I picked up on the Isle of Arran, which I shared during my video. This is the Arran Harmony, a contender for my top 10 for 2019, which that video will probably be posted after this one is. Then I have a couple others here from Orkney. Excuse me, another one here from Orkney. This is Scapa Scarron. Bottled at 40% alcohol by volume. Another distillery that I visited on Orkney. And at the time of this recording, I haven't gotten into that one. This is a bottle which is produced by Arran. However, it is sold at Lag Distillery. Lag Distillery is on the southern part of the Isle of Arran. It is a sister distillery, a new distillery. They haven't yet released their first whiskey. So Aaron produced this whiskey as sort of a potential look into what Lag Distillery is going to be like. Let's move on. And it looks like I missed one in my Highland collection. This is the Bourbon Burgundy Cask finish. So they number theirs. This is 228 Burgundy Cask. This is bottled at 43% alcohol by volume. I tasted this at the distillery, and by the time you're watching this, I've already reviewed this. However, I'm not getting into it. Bourbon, I think, emphasizes or specializes in wine cask finish whiskeys. Sort of like a Glen Moray, and I really like this one. It wasn't too expensive, but I didn't pick this up at the distillery. I bought it here in the United States. This was actually a distillery I wasn't planning on visiting. It wasn't part of my agenda, but as I was heading back from Orkney to Glasgow, I stopped in along the way and visited the distillery. Alrighty, now that we've covered all the single malts, now we get into blended Scotch whiskeys. Let's start from over here on the left. This is a Jane Walker Black, a 12-year-old. It's basically the same thing as a Johnnie Walker Black. I haven't gotten into this one. I had a Johnnie Walker Black, but I finished it, which I really like as a blended whiskey. I've gone through 2 of those. One of these days, I'll get into this one. This is a Johnnie Walker Double Black. The Johnnie Walker Black and the Jane Walker Black are 12-year-olds. This is a non-age statement and has a little bit more intense, I would say, oak and peat note on it. This is a special bottling of the Johnnie Walker Black. This is the Blade Runner edition. This is the Johnnie Walker Black 2049, bottled at 49% alcohol by volume. I've got 2 of these, which I have reviewed. One's open, one's not open. This is absolutely fantastic, and I really wish they made 49 ABV a regular. However, my suspicion is that they made a widely distributed 49% alcohol by volume Johnnie Walker Black. People wouldn't be buying the other Johnnie Walker Black. Some are at 40, some are at 43, depending on whether you're buying it in the UK or you buy it here in the United States. This is the Johnnie Walker Red, which I have never reviewed. I never will review, and I don't recall if I've ever consumed it straight. I bought this for doing a competition of whiskey and Coke, trying different whiskeys with Coke to see what worked the best, and what I liked the best actually turned out to be the Jack Daniel's Old No. 7. So I may never ever drink this. It may sit for the rest of his life on my shelf. It's a whiskey which, yeah, is most whiskey tubers stick their nose up at it, but I don't think it's meant to be consumed straight. It should be consumed as a blending whiskey. This is the famous Grouse Black blended Scotch whiskey. This is bottled at 40% alcohol by volume. I think it's very similar to Johnnie Walker Black. Johnnie Walker Black, in terms of quality, a little bit more intense flavor, just sort of edges that one out. Now, these are 2 whiskeys that are really, they're not from real distilleries. These are purchased by Total Wine & More, or they're produced for Total Wine & More. And I bought this as part of a study of understanding single grain whiskeys. This is a 12-year-old and blended malts. This one's called the Isles, but I really did like them. So it's a blended malt rather than just a blended whiskey. This is bottled at 40% alcohol by volume, and I actually really like this. You know, you might stick your nose out because it's not a real distillery or whatever, and it's exclusively sold here in the United States through a large conglomerate store or whatever. But if you like it, you like it, and I like it. This Strathcombe 12-year-old single grain whiskey. It's super simple, good for cocktails, and the main thing I would say is it gives you a basic understanding of the impact of grain whiskey, and to give you a better appreciation for well-done grain whiskeys, such as those produced by Compass Box, which we'll get into next. All right, finishing up my blended Scotch whiskey collection, we have a few here from Compass Box. Compass Box is a producer I would love to have a lot more of, but so many whiskeys, so little time, but I have yet to be disappointed with a bottle. Now, they do tend to be really expensive. They can be quite a hit to the pocket, but I absolutely love them. The first one I ever tried was the Spice Tree. Still under $100. I think last time I looked, it's somewhere between $70, $75. This one is getting close to being gone, but it's still readily available. Absolutely fantastic. John Glazer does some absolutely superb things. And I've yet to hear anybody say that they didn't like Compass Box. Everybody likes Compass Box. I've heard people stick their nose up at non-age statement whiskeys, or some even have blended whiskeys. I gotta say, you're missing out if you aren't trying Compass Box. This is the extravaganza. It is the bigger brother, more intense flavors to Spice Tree. A little bit more difficult to get a hold of, and probably another, I don't know, $30, $40 at retail price over this. Is it worth the extra 30, 40 bucks over this? That's debatable. I think it's marginally better. It is better, marginally better. I don't know if the increase in price is really justified. Now, at the time of I'm recording this, we are in late fall, getting close to the holidays. These are the perfect whiskeys for Thanksgiving and Christmas. There's just something about them that reminds me of, pumpkin pie, apple pie, and the holidays and the fall weather. This is the Compass Box Hedonism, a blended grain whiskey. I didn't really appreciate this one until I had other grain whiskeys of lower quality and far less price, but those helped me appreciate this to understand what a great blended grain whiskey, or even a single grain whiskey potentially, could be. Absolutely superb. And this is also one that really needs time to open up and get past the neck pour. This is a Compass Box peated whiskey. I really super like this. This is the Compass Box No Name. And it has, if I recall correctly, I'm going off the top of my head, if I recall, I think it's Ardbeg and Kalila that's in this. It might have Klein Leash in there as well, going by memory, sorry. I really like it. It's a fantastic whiskey, but the price that it goes for, I can get a lot of Ardbegs that I would like a lot more. That's all I got to say about that. So if you're a peat man, if you're into peat monsters, if you're into big peaty whiskeys, is this worth checking out? Absolutely. If you're looking for highest quality price ratio in comparison to other peated whiskeys, then I'm probably going to say no, but it's still an absolutely fantastic whiskey. So this is my California collection plus one from DC. This is from Sonoma Distilling Company. This is the bourbon. I reviewed this one with John from Blind Whiskey Reviews. Not a big fan. I think it's too young. They need to spend more time. Showing a lot of sort of green notes and fresh like wood shop shaving notes and a lot of green notes. It just needs more time in oak. So wasn't a real big fan. Sorry. This is from a distillery in Livermore, not too far from where I live. This is from Sutherland Distillers. This is Diablo's Shadow. They are on the south end of Mount Diablo, or Devil's or Diablo's Mountain. I actually like this one. This is a straight bourbon whiskey, and I've got a wheat whiskey from. I tasted this at this distillery, but I have not reviewed it yet. This is son of a bourbon. This is from the Napa Valley Distillery. It is finished in a port cask. I like it. The port sort of really kicks in at the end. You get all those sweet wine notes on it, bottled at 40% alcohol by volume. Really cool distillery to visit. If you're ever up there visiting wineries, you're looking to do something a little different, you want to check it out. Probably one of the leaders in the California whiskey industry is St. George Spirits, located in Alameda at the former Naval Air Station, Alameda Naval Air Station, which was my grandfather's last duty station here in California. But their main emphasis does tend to be on spirits, which they do a really good job on, and the whiskeys can be a little hard to get a hold of. This is their single malt, which I like, but I think it also could use some time in oak. The one I really like, this is absolutely fantastic, and sells for about $75 on release, and then they quickly jump up in price if you can get your hands on them. This is the Baller. This is their take on sort of a Japanese style of whiskey using smoked grain. Absolutely fantastic. I would try this next to a Hakushu 12-year-old. I think they really do have that Japanese style of whiskey making in that one. These next three are the ones that I picked up at San Diego Distillery. Met up with Bill, the Whiskey Dick, down in San Diego, and then I went over and visited the distillery. This is their peated whiskey. Actually, I've got an open one sitting right here. This is probably one of the most heavily peated whiskeys I think I've ever had. The peat is imported, or the peated barley is imported from Islay. It is super intense, but an absolutely fantastic whiskey. If you like a smack upside the head of peat, then that's one for you. You're gonna love that one. Rex and Daniel, the Whiskey Vault, also reviewed this one, and they had the same impression of it. This is a San Diego Distillery bourbon. This one is widely distributed. The peated ones, I had to get these at the distillery, but we're checking out. These next three are from Seven Stills Distillery in San Francisco, which starts with a craft beer. All right, most of the flavor for the whiskeys is coming from a high quality beer rather than extracting 70% of the flavors from oak barrels. Really like them, and yet it's just a really different take on doing whiskeys. If you're a beer fan, you're probably gonna like these. This is the Whipnose whiskey, very high in citrus, orange peel, lemon, really light, refreshing, and super floral whiskey. I haven't reviewed this one. This is the Fluctuate. And the funny thing is, I tasted this at the distillery, but now I don't remember. I'll have to get into that in 2020. This is the Russian Imperial Stout Tsar. I tasted this one at the distillery, really liked it, but what I really liked is they also gave me the ability to taste a cask strength. That was phenomenal, but they're not bottling it. It's sort of a tease, you know, but I still do really like this. So this is made from a stout. Really wish, if they haven't ever watched this, make the cask strength, release the cask strength. This is from Santa Cruz, Venus Spirits. This is their single malt. I think like a lot of Californians, they tend to go a little too young, although I thought it was good. It has a lot of sort of that cinnamon candy note to it, but they're right next to the ocean. Beautiful location. So, you know, go check out the beach, you know, go surfing, whatever, and then drop in. And they also do cocktails there. I think this one is doing better than some of their earlier versions. Now, these last two are whiskeys that are not from California, but they're in a geography of their own. They're from Washington, D.C. This is the Joe Magnus, triple finished, Pedro Jimenez, cognac, and Oloroso sherry, if I recall correctly. Yes. This was my bourbon of the month. Or the bourbon, the top one for bourbon month that I had in 2019. There's only one problem I have with this bottle, and that it is now empty. But I absolutely love this whiskey. So I heard about this one. This is from the same producer, but I haven't gotten into it. This is the Murray Hill Club Bourbon Whiskey Blend. Looking forward to get into this one. Probably doing a bourbon month in the year 2020. A lot of people that were saying, hey, if you like the Joe Magnus, you want to get this one. I picked this up at a shop down in Texas. So really looking forward to getting that in 2020. All right, so this part of my whiskey library is under construction, along with a lot of other categories. There are some categories of whiskey that I have not spent the time on that I should, and these are two of them. One is Canadian. So this is Crown Royal Rye. It's an all right whiskey, good for blending. That's just about 18 bucks. This is, your Crown Royal blended Canadian whiskey. It's an all right whiskey, 18 bucks, good as a blender. But if this is your impression of Canadian whiskeys, and that's how you characterize Canadian whiskeys, then I think you're missing out. And I need to spend more time studying Canadian whiskeys. This is the crown jewel of Canadian whiskeys. This is the Lot 40 cask strength, which I got as a part of a swap with Trinity NC. I sent them a bottle of Ardbeg Drum Committee release, and they sent me this one through some magic elves who got these north and south. Looking forward to getting into this. Looking hopefully in 2020 to do an entire month just on Canadian whiskeys. This is an Irish whiskey. Some of you have been wondering, hey, does Erik have an Irish whiskey collection? Yeah, this is it right here. It's another category that I have neglected. Now, I've done a little research into actually visiting Ireland. There's like 24 distilleries that you could visit, and within a 2-week period, you could probably hit all of them. So maybe, if not 2020, perhaps 2021, I'd like to go to Ireland and visit them. This is the Redbreast 12-year-old single pot still whiskey. I've tasted this one in other occasions. I've done a neck pour of this one. Really like it. Irish whiskey has been around longer than Scottish whiskey. They are going through a sort of a revival now, as Scotland is, and so there's going to be a lot more hype, I think, coming around about Irish whiskeys. So it is a category I really need to get to know a lot better, other than your typical, ubiquitous Jameson bottles that you see around St. Patrick's Day. Alrighty, now we have some world whiskeys as a transition into categories which need more exploration. Categories that are sort of under construction in my whiskey library. So 2 here from Amrut, Indian single malts. This is the Amrut Fusion. Tasted blind. I think it could be mistaken for an Oban. Try an Oban, say an Oban 14 or a distillery exclusive alongside the Amrut, and they're very similar. It's made from Scottish barley that is peated in Indian barley. So it's a fusion of 2 different countries and 2 different types of barley. This is the Amrut Intermediate Sherry. Kind of strange. They put it in a sherry cask, then a bourbon cask, and then back into a sherry cask. Absolutely fantastic. Sells for about 125 bucks. I was able to pick up several of these for like 50 bucks when they were first released. I think they were first sold at the airports, and then when they first got into the market, they were really low priced. So I was able to get a bunch at the time, and I'll probably be giving them away as gifts. These are 2 whiskeys which I don't particularly care for numerous reasons. This is a Michel Cuvier. This is the overaged malt, and this is the pale single malt. This is bottled at 45 ABV, and this is bottled at 43% ABV. Why am I not a big fan? Well, the gentleman was a Belgian living in France. He was selling whiskey in Scotland, then got into, he was selling wine in Scotland, fell in love with Scotch whiskey, and decided to become a sort of a independent bottler of Scotch whiskey. So these are aged in casks in France, and then he puts them in these Johnny Walker Black bottles that you may probably look familiar. And because he's thinking wine or whatever he was thinking, he's passed away, although the business still exists. He puts a cork in it as if it's a wine bottle, and then puts a wax on it. And it's just a major pain in the ass to remove. I just really irritates me. And you can't even put the cork back in there, which means you're not going to consume this the way you would a bottle of wine in a couple days. It's just, or at least I wouldn't. So I've got these rubber stoppers in here. And then the quality of the whiskeys, I've just not been impressed with them. They're okay, but they're nothing to run out. So 2 whiskeys, I don't know what I'm going to do with them, and I don't recommend buying them. You know what? When you're exploring whiskey and developing a collection or a library of whiskeys, it's bound to happen. This is a bottle picked up at Milroy's, my favorite whiskey bar in all of England and located in London. This is a special bottling for them, and it's signed by Eddie. And I picked this up when I met up with Jason Whiskey Wise. The whiskey itself is from Ardmore Distillery. This is Macmara. This is a Swedish whiskey dedicated to Motorhead, one of my favorite hard rock bands. It's a good whiskey. It's a good balanced whiskey. It's, nothing to complain about the whiskey in itself. However, I don't think it reflects Lemmy, the lead vocalist and bass player for Motorhead. If I was going to do something that was going to reflect the character of Motorhead, I would have had something with a lot of smoke and leather character to it. That's just the way but other than that, it's a really nice whiskey. Here's a bottle that escaped. This is actually a single malt from the Highlands. This is a Cardew distiller exclusive. As I was going through the bottles during this video, it was hidden behind some other ones. You know what? When you get a lot of bottles, it's bound to happen. I'm sure you feel my pain. This is a limited edition, available only at the distillery, one of 1800, bottled at 48% alcohol by volume. Cardew is a major component in Johnnie Walker whiskeys. So it's an okay whiskey. It's nice. It's just nothing to write home about. But it's just a good, solid backbone whiskey that would go really well in other blends. All right, this is actually a really small but very special part of my collection, which is very difficult to expand on because these are hard to get. This is sort of the south of the equator, you know, from the land down under whiskeys. This is from New Zealand. I'm not 100% how to pronounce this. The Almoravian cask strength double wood whiskey. This is barrel number 394. It's a 16-year-old, bottled at 61.74% alcohol by volume. I've not reviewed this one, but I'm probably going to do a month of haul, you know, maybe down under or something like that. I'm not getting this one, but I'm really looking forward to. I wish more whiskeys from Australia, New Zealand, and so forth could make it up here. Oh, by the way, if I didn't mention it, this is from New Zealand. It was aged in American oak and then finished in French oak ex-New Zealand red wine barrels. This is one that I've cracked open and tasted, and I've tasted at events as well. This is a Starward. I was on another channel, and during a live stream I opened up and tasted it. This is the Starward Nova, Australian whiskey, aged in red wine barrels. This is bottled at 41% alcohol by volume. I'll look forward to getting back into that. I'm doing a formal review. These are two whiskeys that I got from Tom R. I think everybody who follows the live, particularly watches the live streams, y'all know Tom R. He picked these up, I believe, at Benny's, if I recall, and he gave these to me when we met up. These are both from Lark Distillery. Absolutely fantastic whiskeys. Single malts, a little on the sweet side. This is the single cask, bottled at 43% alcohol by volume, and this is a cask strength, bottled at 58% alcohol by volume. Absolutely superb whiskeys. I just wish we could get more Australians and Australian whiskeys here in the United States. All right, this is my final category in my collection. This is my collection of Japanese whiskeys. And it's another category that is sort of still under construction. I would like to do an entire month just on Japanese whiskeys, and I would like to explore them a lot more. I'm seeing more and more Japanese whiskeys now coming onto the market, but you gotta be careful because they do import Scotch whiskey into Japan and then blend it with Japanese whiskey. So you gotta be really careful about what you're buying there. I'm hoping Japan will come up with something similar to the Scotch Whisky Association or the Texas Whisky Association, which they get more regulated and control to be more transparent and honest about what's in the bottle. But I have had a number of Japanese whiskeys at whiskey bars that were just unbelievably phenomenal, insanely expensive, but absolutely fantastic. And I think they have something unique to contribute to the whiskey world. All right, so this is the AY Tradition, just sort of an okay Japanese whiskey, nothing to write home about. This is a bottle that I have not gotten into yet. This is the Matsui Mizunara cask. It is bottled at 48% alcohol by volume. I've not tasted this yet. I bought it blind, mainly because, one, I want to add to my Japanese whiskey collection, and I'm really fascinated by Mizunara casks. So looking forward to doing a whole month just on Japanese whiskeys. These two are both the Hibiki Harmony. This is your standard Hibiki Harmony. They used to have a 12-year-old, I think they had a 17-year-old, and then they had a 21-year-old, and then due to a shortage, they went non-age statement. I've now seen these for like 40 bucks. I think I bought this for $55. I like it. I think it's a good classic Japanese whiskey. You know, it's got a lot of finesse, a lot of elegance. I really like it. If you're paying more than 55 bucks for these, you need to shop around. This is also a Hibiki Harmony. I actually bought two of these for $60 each. This is a special bottle, however. This is the 30th anniversary edition, which is not to be confused with the 30-year-old Hibiki Harmony, done in a real special, beautiful bottle. I bought 2 of these for $60 each. I reviewed it. It's basically the same thing in terms of taste and aroma profile as the Hibiki Harmony. It's mostly, you know, just an absolutely beautiful bottle. Now, after I'd opened one and reviewed it, and I was talking to someone about this, they asked me if they could buy my unopened bottle, and they offered twice what I paid for it. I said, no, I'm not selling you my other bottle. I want to hang on to it. He then said he wanted to buy my open bottle. And I was like, you're gonna buy an open bottle, something I already drank out of? He said, yeah, he just really, really wanted one. So I sold it to him, but I'm not into price gouging. You know, I probably could have sold it for twice, because he wanted it so much than what I paid for it, but I sold it to him for 60 bucks, the price. So I broke even on that one, was able to taste it and review it. This one, I'm gonna hang on to. Now I've been looking around, these puppies are going for several $100s a bottle, and let's be honest, if it tastes and smells the same as this one, it's all about the bottle and the collectability of it. All right, let's move on. The Nika whiskey from the barrel. This made my top 10 for 2018. This is a 750. You can get the 500s probably for around 30 bucks or 30 pounds in the UK, but this is a 750. And I think I paid it around $65, $70, somewhere in that neighborhood, made from like 100 different casks. I think it's a lot of finesse, a lot of elegance, a lot of complexity to it. I really, really, really like this whiskey. The strangest bottle in the world, I don't like that. It fits on a shelf really well. They should take this whiskey and put it in a bottle, something like this. You give it some beauty to it, you know, but still an absolutely fantastic whiskey. This is the Hakushu 12. I paid 80 bucks for this. I'm starting to see these pop up again now. The prices are a bit higher. It's a lightly peated whiskey, and I really, really, really like it. My final one here is the Suntory Toki. This is not to be taken seriously as a sipper on its own. It really is designed for making highballs. You know, it's real simple, lemon and vanilla, some citrus, and that's kind of about it. Which you can stick your nose up at it. These tend to go for under $30, like 28 bucks, something around on there. But if it's not intended to be consumed straight, although nothing wrong with doing that, but you are looking to make highballs, then go for it, buy a bottle. It's sort of the same category as a Johnny Walker Red, although qualitatively I would rather drink this than Johnny Walker Red. But in terms of your approach to it, is how you're going to use it as it's intended, which is for making cocktails. Alrighty, so I really, really, really want to explore Japanese whiskeys a lot more. I may have to do it by visiting Japanese whiskey bars. There's one in San Francisco that I've been wanting to check out because the bottles are so expensive and so hard to come by. I've read a couple books on Japanese whiskeys, and I'm really, really fascinated about the culture and how it gets reflected in some of these better whiskeys. Alrighty, that's it for my 2019 Hipster Whiskey Collection. One of the things that's been going through my mind as I pull out all these bottles off the shelves and sort of in my mind revisit the exploration of a whiskey that I've had over the last 3.5 years is it's just a catalyst for interacting with other people, cultures, languages. It's an avenue to meet other people. It's something to be explored and enjoyed with thankfulness, but not something to be focused on in and of itself. Life does not consist in the abundance of things, and I kind of feel in some sense getting a little carried away here. I don't want thousands and thousands and thousands of bottles. It would just get to be a little ridiculous. But I do want to continue to study whiskey, particularly those areas that I have not spent enough time on and getting to know. Japanese whiskeys, Irish whiskeys, Canadian whiskeys, and then perhaps world whiskeys, but those can be hard to come by. Alrighty, if you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you haven't yet subscribed, but you like watching my videos, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up, share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and other social networking channels. And if you're interested in watching more of my content, check out these videos and those videos, and that's it. All right, until next time, cheers. Hey, if you like my review, be sure to check out these other whiskey videos.